Merci beaucoup pour l'invitation et aussi merci beaucoup de me donner la possibilité de parler en anglais. C'est plus facile pour moi. So I will continue in English. I will speak about the German partnership and Industry 4.0. Probably you know that the term Industry 4.0 was invented in Germany by Kagermann. He's the CEO, former CEO of SAP. And he created the worldwide hype on this issue now. And I will talk on three issues: the high-tech strategy in Germany, the proactive trade union policy, and the dual system in Germany, which was mentioned several times this morning. So I start with the high-tech strategy. Until 2010, the German national R&D policy mainly focused on specific technologies. And this has changed in 2010. It was said the focus of research and the high-tech strategy should be on society's need, on practical solutions to develop the society and in 6 fields. And these 6 fields you can see here, it's digital economy and society. This is Industry 4.0, but Industry 4.0 is not only there, it's a transversal issue. It has to also to do with mobility in logistics sectors, etc. And the other fields are sustainable economy, healthy living, intelligent mobility, civil security. And then the union said, well, where's work? It was not there. And the engineers who had influenced the whole research programs hadn't thought of work. And due to union pressure, the coalition government in 2015 decided to add the innovative workplace as an additional field. And the main pillar in this field, innovative workplace, is the so-called Future of Work program, with €1 billion for 7 years, which is quite a lot of money for this issue. So the goal in Germany in R&D policy is to invest 3% of GDP in R&D, 1% by the state, 2% by companies. And this is the specific strength of the German economy, that the companies are contributing to research a lot. In the US, the relation is reversed. It's two-thirds the state, one-third the companies. And what about the future of work programs? The issue of my presentation, there are yearly tenders on specific themes. There are advisory boards with social partners, with researchers. And these tenders are on specific themes like competencies for digital work, new forms of internal flexibility in companies. Also on sectors, digitalization in the care sector is an issue. And then companies and researchers can apply for projects. Only projects are financed with innovations in more than one company. This means companies have to form networks. Secondly, there have to be plausible ideas of dissemination of the results so that they are not the private property of the companies. And certainly the companies have to contribute with own money. Otherwise, there is a danger that they are not really doing what they really want and what is really needed. And what is important for the social partnership is in all projects, cooperation agreements between researchers and companies and works councils have to be signed. This means the works councils are part of these projects. And here you can see how much money is spent. In Germany now, we are near to the 3%. The increase since 2000 was 0.5% of GDP. In Canada, by the way, the share is declining. And you can also see some surprising results, the high shares of R&D in Israel and Korea, which explains the success of these countries in especially in the IT sector, especially Israel. And one type of project is the support of regional networks. Here is the cluster in East Westphalia, and it's a cluster of 230 production sites. Many medium-sized companies, also small companies are part, and there's €100 million public money going in this network. and relationships with the universities and research centers in this area. And they're doing joint subjects which they cannot do alone, like, for example, defending themselves against cyber attacks, which is impossible for a small company or medium-sized company to do this alone, so they help each other. And this network is very important for dissemination of innovation across the sizes of company and also to different sectors. I come to my second point, proactive trade union policy. So what is the position of the German unions? We have a different union structure than you have. We have unitary unions in each sector, only one union, which makes things much easier to act strategically in one sector, because also the unions can concentrate on one sector and have not to concentrate on too many sectors. The German unions, you know that we are an export country, especially in the manufacturing sector. If we are not ahead in innovation, we will lose our exports. Insofar, the unions see Industry 4.0 as a necessary innovation push to help to secure jobs and also to improve working conditions. What they propose is a proactive approach to avoid risks, and these risks they see especially linked with underinvestment in skills, which would leave certain parts of their membership and of the employees in the sector behind, and also would not fully exploit the productivity potentials of new technologies. And also there's a big hope that working conditions can be improved through the use of new technology, making work interesting, more interesting, integrating disabled people, etc. So this is a union position. It's not similar to the members' position. Many members are afraid of the new technologies. So this position is linked with controversial debates within the unions, of course. And what do the unions do? They influence national and regional R&D priorities. And I think this influence on the national high-tech strategy is quite a big success of union policy. They encourage and coordinate a future of work projects. This means there are conferences of the big unions of IG and Metall in the engineering sector on research policy. They have own networks with researchers and bring together works councillors and researchers and encourage them to do certain projects, for example, on competences in certain types of companies. And a third point is they are thinking what can we do in collective bargaining beside wage increases or new classification systems. And a major issue is, for example, collective agreements on further training, which is not easy. This is not a theme which is very popular among the members. You cannot go on strike for an agreement on further training. You can go on strike for an agreement on wage increases. So it's a soft theme, and the union succeeded in the engineering sector, in the public service, in other sectors, to establish a right of each individual employee in the companies to have with the supervisor once a year a conversation on the own skill situation and on the skill development. And in cases where you have active works councillors, we have a strong system of co-determination. This really helps, and also management is not opposing this because they see this as a help for their human resource policy. And what unions are doing, they have their own research projects. They are investing own money on what they call now Workforce Zero. So the second term which was invented in Germany is now Workforce Zero, which should complement Industry 4.0. Meaning that the issues of working conditions should be included. And there's a big project in North Rhine-Westphalia, the biggest province in Germany. It's called North Rhine-Westphalia 220. 2020, and the IG Metall is investing for 6 years a lot of money in this project. 5 full-time officials are responsible for the project. There's state money for consultants, external consultants, and also an evaluation which is done by our institute. So the union identified companies with proactive works councillors and interested management, and there were signed letters of intent to work together on the issue of work zero. And they found companies, so management was is also interested. And with state money of North Rhine-Westphalia, in 30 companies until now, they were financed 6 to 8 all-day workshops with the help of consultants. And what happened in these workshops, there was taking place a stock taking on the development, the digitalization in the different departments of the company. And there were involved employees as experts of their own working places. And it was, for me, I attended many of these workshops, very interesting to see how employees really see the involvement of technological change in their workplace, in their departments. There was a mapping of problems and of chances, and also development of proactive strategies. And I show you what is the result. This is difficult to read. It's a kind of company map. And you see on both sides the different departments, and where you see green, it's a positive development, increasing number of jobs, improvement of working conditions. Where you see red, there are discovered some problems. And these problems could be underinvestment, increasing stress, etc. And behind this map, of course, there's a much more differentiated story, but this is a stock taking of problems which can be used now for human resource development in the companies. And some intermediate results are the works councils work differently than in the past, less representative. There's more involvement of the employees. They ask employees, what do you want, what do you need? And there's also an activation of employees. They come more directly to works councillors and to their managers to ask being involved in the company. And the management, what is interesting, was impressed by the professional approach with these consultants, and had high interest in the results, because for management also, Industry 4.0 is a journey in unknown waters. They don't know how the work is looking like in a few years. And the big themes were job security, intensification of work, initial and further training, and working time, especially in training, underinvestment of, for example, in the training of older workers. What happened is that until now, in 9 companies, so-called future agreements were signed. So management employees agreed to form joint working groups with regular meetings to monitor changes. And then in some of these future programs, there are specific intentions formulated that they will develop skill development and will look at working time changes which are linked with new technologies. So it's a clear intensification of social partnership, which only works in companies where also the management was open to this, to do this project, which was not the case in all companies. I come to my last point, modernization of vocational training. In Germany, between 5 and 6% of employees are apprentices in the dual system of vocational training. And that's quite a number, quite a high percentage, and they are trained in around 350 national white and blue-collar occupations. These are national occupations. They are regulated by the social partners. This means the curricula are developed by employers and unions. The state is responsible for the vocational schools, and apprentices are 3 days in the company and 2 days in vocational schools. And what we can see over the last 20 years, the German manufacturing sector, including the steel sector, has completely changed into a skilled sector. Unskilled, semi-skilled people have nearly disappeared. You find them among the older workers. There's broad skills based on tertiary education or VET. And what is very important, I think I heard a lot at this conference on further training. I think 80% of the learning doesn't take place through formal training, but on the workplace. But you can only learn at the workplace if you have broad skills, if you understand what is going on. If you are not understanding what is going on, you cannot learn on the job. So the broad skill basis is, especially in a rapidly changing environment, is extremely important. And what is also interesting is job tenure is increasing in Germany. Especially in the manufacturing sector, not in retail trade, but in this sector, because companies now rely more and more on the tacit knowledge of their employees and on the knowledge which is not an individual knowledge, it's the knowledge of teams. What happens with the modernization of vocational training? Most occupations were modernized a few times in the last 20 years. The occupational profiles have become much broader than in the past, and they are technology open. This means they do not refer to a specific technology, they refer to tasks. And you can, if technology is changing, this means the curricula is implicitly changing because different technology is used. You are learning in teams and in real business processes to acquire social skills and understand the context of the work. This means there is not a separate training in social skills, which you find in the literature on training. Everywhere I read, social skills are more and more important, but you can only develop social skills which are in concrete processes, and you need to link it with your professional competencies, and you can only partially learn this separately. And the social partners, they are affected by the of course, by the hype on Industry 4.0, and they decided on a fast modernization in the engineering industry of 11 engineering and electronic occupations with agile methods. Today we say agile methods. In the past we have said continuous improvement. There's a little bit of hype in terminology, you see. And what they did is they created also optional modules like program for IT security or initial or further training. And the social partners is the Federal Institute of Vocational Training check now 20 occupations and see what has to be changed and if there are common models across occupations. And here you see a typical way how learning has changed. 20, 30 years ago, the apprentices learned on products and then on complex products, then on orders. And what they are doing now is it's a customer orientation. This means they are learning in business processes which start from the order to the delivering of a product to the customer. And this involves teamwork because a business process often requires teamwork. And here you can see one recently modernized occupation of the, I have it in French here, of the mécanicien industriel. And you can see that before Industry 4.0 we already had a quite modern occupation, and digitalization was already present. Also the customer orientation, and they were in a fast modernization added a few elements, you find them in red, and also some other elements were slightly modernized. And the social partners agree to do this continually because you don't know where the travel is going, so you cannot change your occupations for a future which you don't know yet. You have to do it step by step. So this was my presentation. My conclusion is digitalization started earlier, but Industry 4.0 created a culture of department and helped to focus priorities, also trade union policy and social partnership policy. Work was an appendix to Industry 4.0, but now has become a big issue in Germany, and there are many speculations of the future of work in 2030. but the formation of workforce zero is an experimental process with small steps, and agile methods are needed, and social partnership in this process is absolutely crucial. Thank you very much.